Everyone projecting the Buffalo Bills to be selecting wide receiver in the first round, but how about a player like defensive end, defensive tackle Darius Robinson, who played both positions in college, that can offer the versatility at defensive end and defensive tackle, recording 8.5 sacks in only 12 games. Now, his recent comments at the combine kind of stating his bench press was a lot lower because there was a slanted bar, the carpet was moving with the bench. So he says that he's going to do this again at his combine. So 21 reps on the bench at the combine really is not an indication of how strong he ultimately is. And maybe that hurts his draft stock enough to have him definitely be there at 28th overall, maybe a little bit later in day two. But I think the Bills could very well select him 28th overall in this year's NFL draft. And really some of the reasons why, we have to take a look at what has happened on this Buffalo Bills defensive line. We've lost Leonard Floyd, right? Leonard Floyd, we don't know if we're going to be able to bring him back to Bills Mafia after having the season that he had this past year. Especially without Von Miller, Leonard Floyd had a higher snap count, normally plays in 3-4 schemes, comes to Buffalo in a 4-3, gets to primarily focus on rushing the edge there as a pass rusher versus dropping back into coverage. Leonard Floyd definitely padded his stats in Buffalo during the 2023 season. I think he's definitely going to get a pretty penny in free agency. It's a shame that we didn't really get to see Von Miller at full health and Leonard Floyd, obviously both of them playing together with the LA Rams in that Super Bowl run. But the other player that we have to keep in mind here for the Bills is AJ Epenesa, right? AJ Epenesa also had a career high in stats during the 2023 season. And I think teams are definitely going to be intrigued by that and pay him a definite pretty penny in free agency. Now, when you look at both, really AJ Epenesa and you look at Leonard Floyd, they were really defensive ends. You know, AJ Epenesa, we occasionally bumped him inside to the D tackle spot, but with his length, his overall weight, I mean, it was just surefire passing downs. It wasn't like we would put AJ Epenesa on 3rd and short, 4th and short at defensive tackle. You know, I think it was kind of a down and distance thing. Maybe we came up with a package. AJ Epenesa was on 3rd and long, and we put him in at defensive tackle. But again, that was a very rare, very, very rare instance with the Bills. Now, Leonard Floyd, I don't think we ever lined him up at defensive tackle just because he's a speedy edge rusher. He's quick, he's agile, he rushes off the edge. But now a guy like Darius Robinson, who has experience playing at D tackle, right, for several seasons and then moving to the defensive end spot and really blowing up there too, he offers versatility at that position. More so than Leonard Floyd, more so than AJ Epenesa. And I think by having one player kill two birds with one stone, we can have Darius Robinson come here to the Buffalo Bills, play defensive tackle. He could play defensive end. We know how we rotate guys on this defensive line, and we need to save money some way, somehow. And really consolidating things to one player, right? We don't need an AJ Epenesa. We don't really need a Leonard Floyd when they're just stuck in their single skill set. You can bring in a Darius Robinson that can play DN, that can play D tackle. If we need him to play in short yardage situations, he could do that at D tackle, but he also has the ability to rush off the edge as a defensive end. So I absolutely love this, and I think there's no coincidence as to why Missouri was so good. You know, the defensive line and Brian Robinson tearing things up statistically, 8.5 sacks in 12 games. I mean, that's just remarkable. It's remarkable, and he's really not a twitchy type edge rusher, and he does great against the run. I see so much potential with him, especially under the tutelage of Sean McDermott, Bobby Babbage, and this entire defense. Now, I know people eyeing up the Bills' offense, saying, oh, well, Josh Allen needs more firepower. Heard Greg Cassell flat out say that Stephon Diggs is not a true number one wide receiver in the NFL. And all this talk about Diggs saying the window's closed, maybe that was all potentially about himself versus the Buffalo Bills, right? And I think, obviously, you start getting up in age, you know, you're not moving as fast. You're not as quick. You really have to start progressing the mind and figuring things out there. But Diggs could still get the job done. I truly believe he's still a #1 wide receiver in this league, but we need to pair someone else up with Stephon Diggs to free him up. You know, when we have another wide receiver that is more dynamic than Stephon Diggs. You know, Gabe Davis is said to get like $15 million in free agency here. And obviously he's just out of the range for the Bills. Like, we need to kind of start over with another wide receiver. And I think just the timing isn't right? We have Diggs on this team right now. We have Josh Allen. We have a lot of money. Mitch Morris, right? We have some big name players. Trey White too. Von Miller. Like, we have some bloated salaries on this team. And the timing just wasn't right to retain Gabe Davis. And we just don't have the money to do so. And maybe we do get him for a reasonable price. Maybe he's willing to come back to Buffalo on a good deal. But again, I think we're definitely going to lose him in free agency. I think this is the year that we definitely select a wide receiver. I just don't know if it's going to be in the first round or later round. We all know college produces wide receivers like crazy. I mean, colleges are passing the ball. They're not running it in this spread style offenses. So I think the wide receiver groups are going to be deep year after year after year. And there are a ton of talent. There is a ton of talent coming out in this year's NFL draft with the wide receivers. So looking at it, you know, we spoke about taking the pick of the litter at the safety position at 28th overall. I think the Bills could definitely get a pretty decent selection here at 28th overall for defensive end, defensive tackle Darius Robinson, or even a wide receiver. You know, there's a lot of quarterbacks coming out in this year's draft. There's a lot of offensive linemen that are said to be coming out in this year's NFL draft. The Bills don't necessarily need really either one of those. And I think it should push talent back to some positional needs for the Buffalo Bills. Now, I do think a backup center to Mitch Morris, obviously, would be ideal. Maybe a swing tackle to Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. But for the foreseeable future, Dawkins and Brown are going to be our solidified starters at tackle. Osiris Torrance, obviously a solidified starter at right guard. Connor McGovern, we just paid big-time money to last year. He's going to be here for a minute. It's really just that backup center spot. And I don't see us wasting a first-round pick on a backup center, especially when he's going to have to learn behind Mitch Morris this upcoming year. I think you could definitely get that in a later round too as well. So looking at it, I mean, wide receiver still makes sense at 28th overall, but, you know, instead of just jumping on that bandwagon, I wanted to explore another player here. I mean, we definitely have safety concerns on defense. We have defensive end, defensive tackle concerns because of the losses that we have with Micah Hyde, Leonard Floyd, AJ Epenesa. But I want to hear from you. Drop your comments down below. Who do you guys think in what position at the 28th overall pick? A lot of people just saying it's going to be wide receiver, but I think could be a surprise here, just like last year in the tight end spot. Appreciate you. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, check the links down below in the description, and go Bills.